They say Mangione is still a mass danger to society, and they claim he's already inspired copycat killings. Somehow that's Luigi Mangione's fault. That mass shooting happened within a few blocks of Mangione's. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup on the ground. I am in Flint, Michigan, East Palestine, Ohio, Tumwa, Iowa. Please support the leading independent news outlet on the ground covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Federal prosecutors who want to send Luigi Mangione to death row are refusing to provide his defense lawyers with an outline of evidence they intend to use in seeking the death penalty against him. That's the main takeaway in a pretty lengthy court filing federal prosecutors filed last week. Among other things, they say Mangione is still, in their view, a mass danger to society, and they claim he's already inspired copycat killings, citing the mass shooter that killed people at NFL headquarters in New York City recently, even though there's zero evidence that has any connection to Mangione or that the shooter was inspired by Mangione. I'm going to read some of the court filing. For those of you following the case, the next court hearing is coming up soon, actually, in the New York case against Mangione on September 16th. We will be there on the ground covering it, as we've covered all of the court cases against him so far on the ground. So thank you for those who have supported us to continue this important on-the-ground reporting, because the corporate media certainly isn't doing it. And if you want continued on-the-ground coverage of Mangione's case, including when the trial starts, presumably next year, please sign up as a paying Status Coup member for as low as $5 a month. Let me get to the motion, the court hearing, excuse me. This is by federal prosecutors last week. The discovery the government has provided includes, among other things, video evidence capturing the murder itself, proof the defendant stalked the victim and the surrounding neighborhood in the days and weeks before the murder, extensive writings authored by the defendant evidencing his preparation and motivation for the attack, witness statements and state grand jury testimony, medical and forensic reports, and dozens of hours of security camera footage. Thus, the defendant is already in possession of the evidentiary support for the government's aggravating factors, and there is no risk of a surprise. In short, the government has given the defendant far more than the law requires, and as demonstrated below, has provided adequate notice of each aggravating factor. So basically, the prosecutors are saying, we've already given you enough discovery. You don't need any more specific information or an outline of what our specific evidence is for the death penalty. Obviously, Mangione's lawyers disagree, and they're almost definitely going to reply to this motion with their own argument for why they need a specific outline with specific evidence and discovery that the government is planning to use. Under the substantial planning and premeditation, the prosecutors went on a basically history lesson of how Mangione's alleged murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson was so planned and premeditated. The defendant was also found in possession of a notebook containing handwritten entries dating back to August 2024. Among them was an October 22nd, 2024 entry openly describing his intent to, quote, whack the CEO of a health insurance company at the company's investor conference. Other entries revealed a hostility towards the health insurance industry and specific references to UnitedHealthcare and its CEO, reflecting a developed motive and careful consideration of a target. I do find it interesting because they definitely were selective in the quotes that they chose to include. And this is from the New York Times. What do? You whack the CEO at the annual parasitic bean counter convention. It's targeted, precise, and doesn't risk innocence, was one passage written in the notebook. Well, I don't know many terrorists, because they charged them with terrorism, which is pretty unprecedented, that in writing would say, I didn't do a bomb, because that's the context. He allegedly in writing said, I was thinking about some type of bomb, but I chose a targeted killing because I didn't want to kill innocents. Well, terrorists are trying to kill as many people as possible. So it doesn't really support the government that he's such a danger to all of society. If, according to them, because they're the ones that leaked this to the media, he said, I wanted to do it in a targeted way to avoid innocence. Now, you might say, some of you might think Brian Thompson, although I don't like the healthcare industry, was innocent. You could think that, but to the letter of the law, he's saying, I didn't want to kill more than one person. I wanted this to be targeted. I didn't want to kill other innocents. So I don't really know how you come up with he's a terrorist from that. And I don't think it supports a death penalty, considering, as I'm going to share with you later, there's several school shooters who killed dozens of people who did not get the death penalty. So how you charge this man with the death penalty for what, according to their own selected material they leaked to the media, he allegedly wrote, I wanted it to be targeted just against this person. It's hard to kind of fathom that. It doesn't really jive. Under victim's impact, the federal prosecutors write, the defendant's contention that the government's notice of intent provides, quote, no facts in support of the non-statutory aggravating factor of victim impact is similarly misplaced. The facts of this case make clear why victim impact evidence will be particularly probative. Thompson was not a random passerby. The defendant hunted Thompson down to kill him because Thompson was the CEO of a major health insurance company. That is, Thompson was the leader of a company in an industry that the defendant was fixated upon harming. Entries in the defendant's notebook dating back to August 2024 reveal a growing fixation on the health insurance industry and specifically UnitedHealthcare. By October 22nd, 2024, the defendant was writing explicitly about his intent to, quote, whack the health insurance CEO at an investors conference. The consequences of Thompson's murder are profound. He was a husband, a father, a colleague, and a leader whose death left a devastating void in his family, his community, and his workplace. At the penalty phase of this case, the government will present evidence showing how Thompson's death affected his loved ones. The very fact that the defendant plotted for months to assassinate Thompson because of his professional role underscores that the effects of this crime extend beyond Thompson's immediate family to his friends, co-workers, and the broader community he led. I'm sorry. As a human, I feel for his children, his wife. I mean, I think he was deplorable, but I'm sure his children are just nice, are just fine. I'm sure his wife is a lovely woman. I feel as a human for them, but why would, because of the impact on these victims, Mangione be given the death penalty? Do the victims, the Republicans love to talk about all the people being murdered in Chicago. Well, are their killers charged with the death penalty? What about the effects on their loved ones? People killed in Chicago or in mass shootings at concerts or schools or malls. What about people who are stabbed, in these high crime cities that Trump and the Republicans like to talk about? There's not death penalty cases for all of them. It seems that we care, or the government cares more about the victims in this case and this particular victim's loved ones because he was a part of the oligarchy, because he was part of the backroom, top hat, smoking cigars as they screwed all of America, wrongly denying healthcare claims, using AI to deny more claims, and screwing people, and frankly, through their denials, killing a whole lot more people than Mangione allegedly killed. That's not to say violence is the answer, but let's be real. How many people have been killed by UnitedHealthcare and the predatory for-profit health insurance industry? So he should get the death penalty because Brian Thompson's loved ones are more important victims or more important loved ones than your average anybody shot in Chicago or anywhere in the country. Please, give me a break. Just as importantly, and as discussed above, the context and execution of the murder strongly suggest that the defendant intended to influence or provoke broader reactions beyond the immediate killing. He wrote deny, depose, and delay on the bullets he used to kill Thompson, knowing that the shell casings would likely be found by investigators and that his message associated with the criticism of the healthcare industry would be widely disseminated in media coverage. He assassinated the CEO of one of the largest health insurance companies in the country on a busy Midtown Manhattan street during the morning commute. In doing so, he not only endangered multiple bystanders, but also maximized the public visibility of his crime. The defendant wrote the message, quote, message he hoped this killing would convey. The murder was thus, by the defendant's own admission, calculated to resonate beyond the specific victim and to generate scorn, outrage, or fear towards the health insurance sector more broadly. Simply put, the defendant hoped to normalize the use of violence to achieve ideological or political objectives. Since the murder, certain quarters of the public who openly identifies accolades of the defendant have increasingly begun to view violence as an acceptable or even necessary substitute for reasoned political disagreement. The defendant poses a continuing danger not only in a personal capacity, but also because he sought to influence others. The factual support for the aggravator is already within the defendant's possession. And they cite his, quote, influencing others and alleged copycat killings. They cite the mass shooter who recently shot up people in July in New York City at NFL's headquarters. Here you go. Wanted, CEO posters, and other threats emerge after Mangione arrest. On July 28, 2025, Shane Tamura brought in an assault rifle to a Manhattan office building a short distance away from Mangione had killed Thompson. Tamura shot and killed 4 people, including an off-duty police officer, an executive of financial services firm, Blackstone, and a security guard, and injured others, including an employee of the NFL. Like Mangione, Tamura left behind a piece of evidence for investigators to find, blaming the NFL and football for causing chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Almost immediately, members of the public sympathetic to the defendant touted Tamura's actions as a laudable continuation of the defendant's philosophy. So let me get this straight. Because this Shane character, who had some type of traumatic brain injury from playing football, he wanted to target the NFL. That's somehow Luigi Mangione's fault because that murder or mass shooting happened within a few blocks of Mangione's. It seems he was intent on targeting NFL headquarters, which just happened to be near the investor conference where Mangione alleged to do this. It has nothing to do with Mangione. Tamura, there's no evidence, was inspired by Mangione, chose the location to shoot up these people at the NFL, near the NFL headquarters because it was near Mangione. He did it because it was at NFL headquarters and he wanted to send a message about traumatic brain injury, whether you agree with that message or not, that are a result of playing NFL football and other football. Basically, it seems federal prosecutors are connecting dots that are in no way connected and blaming it on Mangione. And by the way, this whole thing about he's a continued danger, whether you agree with that or not, the prosecutors seem to think by putting him to death, that's going to be the ultimate deterrent to potential copycats. You ever heard of martyr complex? You ever heard of if you put someone to death, they become an even bigger martyr, which could then inspire further copycats? So it sure seems to me if their intent is to avoid copycat killings of fellow plutocrats by putting him to death, you're going to do the opposite. I mean, the whole thing is just backwards. Just to remind you, kind of recent American history here, there's been a whole lot of mass shootings. Many of the mass shooters were put to death. But 2018, the horrific Parkland school shooting, Nicholas Cruz killed 17 people. He didn't get the death penalty. Then you look at the El Paso, Texas Walmart shooting that happened in 2019. He killed 23 people, did not get the death penalty. But Mangione's going to get the death penalty for allegedly killing the UnitedHealthcare CEO, according to his own writings, in a targeted fashion because he didn't want to endanger anyone else. Again, you don't have to agree with Mangione did, and a lot of people don't. And a lot of people either do or don't agree with violence or political violence, but aren't losing any sleep over the victim. But this is beyond a slippery slope when you start charging for a targeted killing, which happens all the time. When you start charging terrorism for that, again, Dylan Ruth, who killed 9 people in a Charleston, South Carolina church, he wasn't charged as a terrorist. And these shooters who killed far more people than Mangione allegedly did, they did not get the death penalty. So sure seems like the government's connecting a lot of dots that aren't connected and basically trying to make Mangione a continued danger, such a danger that he would need to be put to death, which is not going to deter anyone. Much broader than that, you're probably going to see more political violence because AI is replacing all your jobs or is soon going to replace all your jobs. They're stealing your money by cutting Medicaid, cutting food programs, giving tax cuts to wealthy people and corporations who don't need it. I mean, the knee on Americans' neck is tightening. I'm not saying go be violent as a result, but it's kind of inevitable when people have nothing left to lose. I'll continue updating you as more court filings are issued in this case. My guess is Mangione's attorneys are going to respond to this. We'll update you on that. As far as I know, we're the only ones still even covering this case, which to me is about much more than Luigi Mangione. It's about the predatory, murderous, for-profit health insurance industry. They should be on trial. They should be on trial because millions of Americans a year and over a lifetime are killed as a result of greed and for-profit health insurance. Status Coup.